Could I ask a follow-up question to that? What are the weirdest grammatical forms or syntactical features of Homeric diction to someone who's studied Attic so far only?
Well, I'm going to put Doug on the spot for this one, and let me set you up for this, which is sometimes the form is so weird that it's very clear that people in the era when Homeric poetry is written down, they don't even understand what it is, and things get messed up, shall we say, even in how they pronounce it. I'm thinking of M' un-essay.
Well, it's a very interesting one. It's in Book 18 of the Odyssey, line 265. I can't do that for many, but I can do it for that one. And the line is Penelope quoting a speech of her husband before he left for Troy, where he told her that he didn't know if he was going to return because of the obvious. But he kind of elaborates and says that the Trojans are such great warriors, and so I don't know whether I will return or not. And the way that's put is, therefore I don't know is to ug oid, oida, but the A gets elided, to ug oid, and then alternatives, a ken, and then the text says manase theos. And that's what you can't interpret. It's M', meaning elided vowel, anesei, anasei. And that's just form, you can't explain it. But if you change that to me, that would be the pronoun me, again, but not with an elision. Mm-hmm. And then the verb would not be anasei, but just nesei, nesei. And there you've got really the verb that explains the name Nestor, because therefore I don't know whether the God will bring me back, and then the rest of it is eken haloo, or I will die, perish, whatever. Yeah. I'm not quite sure what I'm illustrating here.
Well, I think exactly what Keith was looking for, where something is embedded in Homeric language, and keeps on being used, and it's contextually possible to interpret, but it's hard to say, well, what is this form? And when modern dictionary writers are going to put this word into a dictionary, how do you list it? And the thing is, it just doesn't follow any of the rules anymore that are still working in the Greek language when this poetry is written down.
And even at that point, they're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make
because
sense.
Because this verb had dropped out, nesse, to bring back. The middle form does exist. That's neomai, I return, but then you make that active, right? Instead of neomai, it would be neo in the present. In the future, nesso, or in the third person, nesse. So the middle survives, everybody understands that, but they can't make sense of the active form anymore. It's just not a verb anymore.
Yeah, so
but you can tell that, sorry, I was just going to say
please.
that just that the context tells you that, tells me anyway, that the verb did exist. And it's very important to me because of the connection with the name Nestor. Yeah. That, again, that's a kind of an obvious formation. It's an agent noun, somebody who does something, the T-O-R. But what does he do? What is this Ness at the beginning? And since the verb had dropped out, so did the meaning of the name Nestor. Nobody ever thought of, about his name having a meaning. It no longer had a meaning, but it clearly did. I think I've said enough on this.
Oh, no, you can't say enough. This is so wonderful. Yeah. So I'm so glad that we got Doug to talk about this, because it's Doug who discovered this embedded meaning simply by looking at the forms, looking at how the forms are deployed, looking at everything in terms of the system, which is Homeric language. And you were being too modest. So the reason I was starting to interrupt you is, Doug, tell them that you're the one who discovered this.
Didn't I say that?
Not really.
Oh,
It's another example, though, of what you were saying a moment ago,
Yeah.
which is that in the historical perspective of linguistics, you can understand things about the language that were, even within its own context, were obscured, right?
Exactly.
So we can build these models so the continuity and the consistency of the system become apparent, and also how the system can change and lose its own sense of things, but still preserve stuff that's meaningful in its own way. Yeah.
And there is a gap in time between, Greg, you already said
Yep.
this, but between the era of composition and when things get written down. There's
Yes.
a gap.
Yes,
And,
exactly.
so by the time that things get written down, well, what was this anyway? And you get
People are
something
fiddling with it to make some kind of sense out of it. Yeah.
right.
But that's the power of tradition, is that a tradition doesn't have to be translucent
Right.
everywhere.
Right.
And there are different levels of translucence and opacity.
Yep. But expressive is what it has to be.
But it's all very expressive, and the medium is so telling. And not only that, the medium has so much self-reinforcement. So it's one thing for us to be talking about one word in one verse now, but what Doug has managed to do is build an explanation on the basis of the entire system of Homeric formulaic language, which Milman Parry used to call Homeric diction. Isn't that elegant? So it's not, oh, I have an idea, I can explain it this way, and then people can debate, well, I have another explanation. What makes Doug's explanation so elegant and persuasive is that the explanation relies on looking at the whole system of Homeric language.
I could just throw in this passage.
Yes.
Odysseus starts by saying, I don't think all the Greeks, Chians he calls them, will return. And there you have the middle form, aponeesthai. I don't think they will all apone. That's neomai.
Yeah.
And then, well, he gives the reason, because the Trojans do this, that, and the other on the battlefield. Therefore, at the end, I don't know, tou goid. And then he changes it from the middle to the active with the god as the
Agent of return.
agent of return.
Yeah.
Tells you a little something about Nestor too, that the god and in one in this line, and then his name being related to that. He's not a god, I'm not saying that, but there's something a little
Superhuman?
yeah, godlike, I guess.
Okay.
Superhuman, yeah.
I've learned never again to say supernatural, because to be superhuman can still be natural. In the worldview of Greek-speaking people back then.
It's not supernatural.
It's not supernatural, it's natural.
Yeah.
Right.
It's part of nature.
Yeah, exactly.
Gods are part of nature.
The supernatural God is the Judeo-Christian God.
Yeah, so
Is that
sorry,
part of
Wolfgang
that?
Peterson, I like your movies, but you can't just say what you say in an interview about the Iliad, which is, I want to get rid of the gods because they're not natural.
It's just crazy.